The light in the window. In a small town where the evenings were painted in shades of orange and the silence of the night seemed to embrace every rooftop, there lived an old man named Don Raphael. His house was simple, with white walls gently worn by time and blue windows that looked out onto the cobblestone street like patient eyes. But there was something that set that house apart from all the others. Every night, without exception, a light remained on in the upstairs window. It didn't matter if the wind howled fiercely. It didn't matter if the rain tapped against the glass. It didn't matter if winter froze the bones or summer made the darkness heavy. The light was always there. Some neighbors thought it was just a habit. Others believed it was forgetfulness. But the truth was a silent act of love. Don Raphael had a son. His name was Mateo. When Mateo was a child, he used to run down that very street with scraped knees and dreams far too big for the size of the town. He had a contagious laugh and restless eyes. From an early age he spoke about distant cities, about opportunity, about horizons that could not be reached from that small window. Don Raphael listened with pride, and with a quiet fear he never confessed. He knew that true love does not chain. True love lets go, and one day Mateo left. The goodbye happened at that same door. The father held him tightly, trying to memorize the weight of his son in his arms. Mateo promised to return soon. He promised to write, he promised to call, and at first he did. Letters filled with excitement, phone calls full of plans, dreams that seemed to be blooming, but time is a river that sometimes carries away more than we expect. Life became complicated, decisions grew heavier, mistakes began to hurt. The calls became less frequent, the letters stopped arriving, and one day only silence remained, a silence that did not scream, but weighed heavily. The first night without news, Don Raphael sat on his bed, unable to sleep. He told himself his son must be busy. After a few weeks, worry began to settle in. After the first year, he learned to live with uncertainty. But he never stopped doing one thing. Every night, he slowly climbed the stairs, steadying himself with his hand against the wall. He turned on the lamp beside the window. He parted the curtain just enough for the light to be seen from the street, and he looked out. He gazed into the darkness as if he might hear invisible footsteps. If he comes back, he would whisper to himself, he needs to know I'm waiting. The years began to carve lines into his face. His hands, once steady, now trembled slightly as he flipped the switch. His knees ached as he climbed each step, but the light never failed. One afternoon, a young neighbor named Clara saw him sitting on the porch. "Don Raphael," she asked gently, "don't you get tired of leaving that light on every night?" The old man smiled with a tenderness that seemed brighter than the lamp itself. "I would be more tired if I turned it off." Clara lowered her eyes, understanding something that words could not fully explain, because that light was not electricity, it was hope. Meanwhile, far away in a noisy, dazzling city, Mateo lived with an invisible weight in his chest. Life had not turned out exactly as he imagined. There were opportunities, yes. There were small successes. But there were also rushed decisions, wrong friendships, jobs that didn't last. And above all, there was shame. Shame for not becoming the successful son he had promised to be. Shame for returning with hands not as full as he once dreamed. Shame for facing the eyes of a father who had always believed in him. And so time passed. On sleepless nights, Mateo would close his eyes and see the window of his childhood home, always illuminated, always steady in the darkness of the town. That image followed him, because he understood what it meant. It meant that someone, somewhere in the world, had never stopped believing in him. One day, after a particularly difficult evening, Mateo looked at himself in the mirror and felt the weight of the lost years, and he asked himself a question that pierced his soul. What if he's still waiting for me? That question was enough. He bought a ticket. He didn't know what he would find. He didn't know if he would be received with silence or distance. He didn't know if love could survive so many years. But he needed to find out. The bus arrived in the town at sunset. Mateo stepped off with a modest suitcase and a heart pounding in his chest. Each step on the cobblestone street was a living memory. Every corner held a fragment of his childhood, and then he saw it. The White House, The blue window, the light on. His eyes filled with tears before he could stop them. After all those years, the light was still there, not as a reproach, not as a complaint, but as an embrace waiting to happen. He walked to the door. His hand trembled as he lifted it to knock. He hesitated. What if it was too late? But the light was on, and that gave him courage. He knocked. The sound echoed in the quiet night. After a few seconds, slow footsteps approached from inside. The door opened. Don Rafael stood there, more fragile, smaller than Matteo remembered. But his eyes shone with the same intensity as the lamp in the window. They looked at each other. In that gaze were years of absence, unasked questions, unspoken forgiveness. Matteo spoke first, his voice breaking. "Dad, I'm sorry it took me so long." Don Rafael did not answer right away. He simply opened his arms, and he embraced him, an embrace that demanded no explanations, an embrace that required no accounting, an embrace that said without words, "You were always my son, you will always be." That night, the house filled with life again. The kitchen smelled once more of warm soup. The walls heard laughter mixed with tears, and for the first time in many years, the light in the window was turned off early. Not because hope had faded, but because it was no longer needed. The sun had returned. Love had outlasted time. The door had never been closed. Today, this story may not only be about a father and a son. It may be about you. Maybe you are the one who has been waiting. Maybe you are the one who left. Maybe you feel it is too late to return, or too painful to keep hoping. But hear this with an open heart. True love is not based on perfection. It is based on presence, on patience, on the daily decision not to turn off the light. There are people who, even if far away, still have a seat reserved at our table. There are hearts that, even wounded, remain open. There are homes that, even in silence, are still home. And perhaps today you need to know something very important. It is never too late to return. It is never too late to forgive. It is never too late to turn on one more light. If someone has left your life, do not let resentment be the one who switches off the lamp of your heart. If you are the one who left, do not let guilt keep you from knocking on the door. True love never closes the door. It may hurt, it may be tiring, it may bring silent tears, but when it is real, it remains. Today I want to embrace you through these words. If you are waiting, may your waiting be filled with peace. If you are hesitating to return, may you find courage. If your heart has been wounded, may the light of hope never fade. May there always be a window lit in your life. May there always be a place where you can return without fear. May you never forget that being loved does not depend on your successes or your mistakes. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for opening your heart to these stories that seek to heal, to comfort, and to remind us that love is stronger than time. If this story touched your soul, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe and help me continue growing this beautiful community of faith and hope. Here, there will always be a light left on for you. And remember, no matter what happens, true love never closes the door.